I'll just do a little talk and a little quick reading out of the book. But in the series of events that I've done, and interesting when you read a book, when you write a book and then it goes to do all the stuff with the design and the publishing and the printing, then you have some space. And then you come back to the book and I kind of looked it over and like, ooh, you know, because you get so close to it, you don't even want to look at it for a while, but then you have enough space and you kind of review it. It took on a different color when I started looking at it with enough distance. And in the talks I've given on it, it turned into a broader subject than running, and which I found interesting.
I have trail runner brain. 2 reasons for that. 1, my book, of course, came out, Ultrarunning for Normal People, Life Lessons Learned on and Off the Trail. Just came out, doing pretty well. Response has been nice. Secondly, the Mendocino Coast 50K, the race I direct, is coming up. Sold out, it's got people emailing, it's kind of ramping up, the planning is going pretty hard. But I get questions from people on occasion at some of the book events that, you know, just be like, for whatever reason they can't get on trails or they don't fashion themselves a trail runner. So the more and more I've been thinking about the book now that it's out and, you know, I wrote it already and I've had some distance away from it and I can, at the book signings or readings, I read some of it, that I've been kind of browsing through it now that I've had some, you know, space. It occurred to me that it's a book really with a larger subject, a broader subject matter, which is our ability in the modern world, which is getting harder and harder to disconnect, to be in times of solitude, in times of quiet silence, at least in here. We could be around noise, but are we consciously putting things in our head? And this book is essentially about that, because my experience with trail running has been essentially an experience with disconnecting, with being in a place that I never was when I was doing, you know, running on roads, of hearing my own thoughts and having more quiet and less chatter. So that's what's been interesting about the book and talking about the book. But for people who there's some people who just can't run. It's fine. You know, I mean, as a species, we kill it. We're like the great endurance runners. But there's people who just can't run for whatever reason, injuries or knees or whatever. And then there's people who can't get on trails because of their location. Fine. But there are workarounds to both of those things, even in the context of exercise, let's say. So let's say you're on a treadmill. You can try mixing up the elevation during the run, mixing up the speed during the run, essentially artificially mocking an inconsistent terrain like trails. So if you bring the elevation up for a little while, don't time it, don't look at the clock, don't check your pulse, just go up for a little bit, then go back down for a little bit, go halfway down for a little bit, mix that, speed up for a little bit. You don't have, this isn't about HIIT training and interval pushing your ass off. This is about, well, if I were on a trail, it'd be gently up sometimes and maybe even a little bit more up sometimes, and then some down and some flat, and then a little bit of, you know, moving around a little bit to kind of mock that. Then, if you're in a city, let's say, what happens if you run on a sidewalk that's a little uneven with cracks? Here's what I want you to try. Set yourself up in a place where you, in a way, I talk about in the book, wild attention, where you are forced, in a good way, to pay attention. You're on some sort of terrain, whether that's a treadmill or something, where it brings you into presence. It's the effortless meditation that is running or exercising in ways that aren't robotic, like running on a road where you pretty much have repeated motion. Yes, you have to pay attention to traffic and things like that, but in most of the time, if you're mixing up your terrain or in a place where if you zone out you could fall, you're going to be brought into that level of attention, that level of presence. But on top of that, do things sometimes that you don't have earphones, AirPods, earbuds in your ears with things. Run without anything. Run without a watch. Try to exercise, even if it's walking or maybe it's hiking on a trail, where for a period of time, and by the way, this gets easier over time, for a period of time, disconnect that whole technology thing and see what happens, feel what happens, be aware of what happens, watch what happens, listen to what happens. It's easier said than done. Trust me, when I first started training for my first ultra, I just chose on a lark, I talk about it in the book, to not train with anything in my head, just to see, and it was as easily as hard as the running itself. to just not do something or not have something to distract me intentionally was a hard but totally valuable thing to embark upon. And again, things of value take hard work. That's pretty great. And to try to not worry about that so much. Just accept it. You got to work your ass off for things of value. Marriages, families, running, anything of value. A level of existence that is not so locked into the keyboard and to this kind of thing, but a little bit of a separation that gives us a level of fulfillment and joy in our lives that I don't think you can get if you're wired in all the time. So, anybody can experience what basically ultra running is, which is a more natural way to move our bodies, more natural experience, which is us being present and aware in the moment. And I don't think I know what that does when you experience that. Even sometimes those experiences come back into your life, into every other part of your life, and it is a more grounding experience, and it makes you feel more alive, and it is very worth your time. So the excuse of, well, I can't be a trail runner, you can do things that pretend in a way that you're a trail runner, and the more you do those things, at least somewhat in your life, the better off you're going to be long term.